Well, how about that one? We're going to talk about it. We shouldn't be laughing. That was a disaster on the part of the Cardinals. And welcome to STL Sports Central 365. Luke Slabaugh, Randy Karraker after the Cardinals 9-8 loss in Milwaukee. The Cardinals taking a 7-4 lead in the ninth inning. They couldn't hang on to that. And then they took an 8-7 lead in the 10th inning, couldn't hang on to that, and they wind up losing by a score of 9-8. And we do appreciate you joining us here on STL Sports Central. And yes, we know that you want to react, and that is what we are going to allow you to do. The Cardinal bullpen just falling apart tonight. Sonny Gray with a decent performance, not great. The Cardinals giving you 60-cent drinks tomorrow at Mobile on the Run. But Luke, that's about it. A loss to a team that clinched a playoff spot with the Mets loss today, and the Brewers closing in on their division title.
You had a chance, Randy, to spoil the party a little bit, have a more subdued postseason celebration for the Milwaukee Brewers. We wish them well. However, you led this game 6-1. And I look at manager Ollie Marmol and I say, hey, Sonny Gray pitches a solid 5 innings, kind of trails off there in the third inning, misses a little bit with his command. And then you got 12 outs to get. And they can't all come via the sacrifice fly. They give up a couple. And I was talking with Stephen Carey this morning. Baseball is a game of probabilities and momentum. You know, the more outs you can get, that's just they needed someone to step up big, not walk someone. And every single reliever struggled with command at some instance. Uncharacteristic for Riley O'Brien to struggle with his command, his two-seamer, and particularly drilling two batters. But man, you got to navigate a way to pass the baton and get that thing done. The last thing you wanted on national TV with former Cardinal legend AJ Pierzynski on the call is get caught with your pants down on Fox. And when they got out to that roaring start and they jumped on Mizorowski, it looks like this was going to be a statement game for them. And so I go to Warren Pricefield here in the comments. Worst loss of the season, Randy? What say you?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that when you had the two leads, when you had the lead in the middle innings, and then you have a lead, and the way you gave it up with hitting two batters to lead off the ninth inning, and that's the way the Brewers are able to get back into it. That's a pretty devastating loss, even though the Cardinals are out of it, and even though they're under 500 and probably will finish under 500. And you can look at the losses to Colorado. You lose 2 of 3 there. Maybe coming out of the All-Star break where you lost the 3 in a row to Arizona. There have been a lot of really bad losses by the Cardinals this year, but I think this one probably takes the cake. As you said, Luke, the fact that it was on national TV, the fact that you think you had it won with what a lot of people think the Cardinals can use as their new closer in 2026 in O'Brien, and things just fell apart. And yeah, I would not disagree with the assessment of this being the worst loss of the year. And here's one of the things about this, Luke, and we have to use some perspective here. Cardinals traded 3 of their top 4 relievers in Helsley and Matz and Maton. That's a game where if you have Maton and Helsley, you win that. But because you're going with a young bullpen, you're going with unknowns basically with O'Brien and Kyle Leahy in that situation. And before that, when you let the game get away and you blew the 6-1 lead, it's just not the same team. And this is not a championship caliber team at the moment. The strength of the team early in the season obviously was the bullpen. It's not a strength anymore. It is an unknown. It could be a strength. The ability is there. But I would say that right now, and tell me if you disagree, I think the best way you could assess this bullpen right now is that it's a complete unknown.
Yeah, it's an unknown. The way that I see, baseball evolving right now, Randy, is that we've seen some of these less competitive clubs go with an opener. I know Tampa experimented with it years ago, and they were the first to really pioneer it. However, as Heim Bloom evaluates these relievers moving forward, you'll look for not just stuff, but also length. Being able to get multiple innings at a time out of a guy like a Swanson or Leahy bodes well because you're breaking the game up into little bite-sized pieces. We are well past the era of having multiple starting pitchers go 200 innings. And
Mm-hmm.
Sonny Gray, in his heyday, would throw 6, 7 innings on the regular. these days he's laboring to get through 5 innings at 95 pitches. I saw a comment, earlier asking if it was, pulling the plug a little bit too early on Sonny Gray. I disagree. I think that his last start against the Giants in particular, he had 5 no-hit innings, and then command just kind of fell by the wayside there in the last inning. I thought pulling him was the right move. It's just, as you mentioned, an unknown right now.
Yeah, and he when you can get 5 innings and 95 pitches out of Sonny Gray, I think you have to take that as a win. And Swanson did what he's going to do. He was terrific, and maybe he'll wind up as your closer. He gives you the 2 scoreless innings. Then Romero got knocked around. That hasn't happened much this year. And then, as we mentioned, O'Brien doesn't even get an out and allows a couple of runs. And then Leahy does what he can. He goes an inning and a third and through 31 pitches, so he won't be available tomorrow. And you just can't have Kyle Leahy throwing 31 pitches. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt there too, simply because of he being put into an unusual, and I would say for him, an untenable situation. Kyle Leahy could be a starter next year. He's not set up to go 31, 35 pitches right now.
No, he's not. And I'll be interested to see how Chaim Bloom addresses the rotation in the offseason. We heard from Ken Rosenthal on the broadcast, and Buster only echoed it earlier in the week about that the Cardinals aren't anticipating spending a lot of money over the offseason. And that doesn't surprise anyone here in this room or anyone watching it. However, for a team that is middling right now, that isn't super talented and also is not super bad, they're not tanking. It is hard to fathom where the pieces fit in the rotation. They certainly won't run it back with the same starting 5 that they had this year. I would also opine that Sonny Gray got kind of a bad deal there in that bottom of the third, and he probably could have been extended a little bit longer had it not been for the rally that was set up there by the Brewers. They had the bases loaded with no one out. That dribbler off the bat of Joey Ortiz, Nolan Gorman, went in there flat-footed and never actually made a play on the ball until the base runner had passed him from second to third. And
Yeah,
I was thinking this live, and I'm thinking it
kind of a
now.
swinging bunt. If you're a third baseman, I don't know that Arenado makes that play. That ball was in no man's land, wasn't it? I mean, it didn't even get past the mound.
Well, yeah, I guess, I mean, he fielded it right there on the grass. For me, it just felt like one of those things where you're actively trying to make a play on the ball. I could be mistaken here, but it felt like that was the turning point there. You set the bases loaded with no one out, and they're eventually able to get a sacrifice fly there, and it's heck of composure by Sonny to get out of it. Luckily, it didn't burn them, but that was just one of those things that kind of stuck in my craw. There were a couple of defensive things tonight that fundamentally didn't seem sound to me.
Yeah, big picture though, this team just they aren't as good as Milwaukee. Milwaukee did what Milwaukee does. Dalton Richner, absolute embarrassment. Yeah, when you blow leads like that, Dalton, you're right. That is embarrassing, and especially the way things fell apart. And I go back to the controllables, and when you're hitting batters, when you hit the first 2 batters of an inning, you're asking for the other team to score. Jeremy Hodge, at least Mizzou won. I got my Tiger shirt going here. There, yeah, Mizzou won. MIZ. Dalton Richner. This team is a complete joke. It's hard to build a team where every single player is below average. Almost impressive, to be honest. Yeah, the fact that, well, first of all, I think right now I would agree that they don't, especially with Mason Wynn out of the lineup, and I think Donovan is probably still finding his way back. Contreras is an above-average player, but yeah, you look right now at the lineup tonight, and I think you'd have to say that and Herrera is an above-average player, and Burleson is average. But then you get down to Newt. He's probably in. Is he going to be an above-average player for most teams? I don't think so. Sajacy is a nice player, but not a great player. He might be league average. Gorman at this point, I think we all can agree, is a below-average player. Pajes, great defender and threw out a runner tonight, but offensively he is limited, and probably his above-average defense and below-average offense averages out. But yeah, it's a below-average team, and this is not a group that is seasoned by any stretch of the imagination. And then, as we mentioned off the bat, you've got the very young and inexperienced bullpen, and that group. You go back to let's go back to a winning Cardinal team. Well, the 2004 team is the best team the Cardinals have ever had, and you've got Isringhausen, you've got Julian Tavares, you've got Ray King, you've got Steve Klein. You were loaded in the bullpen then. Now you're the opposite. I would argue, Luke, and tell me if I'm wrong here. I don't think that there is a reliever in this bullpen where you would say, okay, that guy is a reliever for a pennant-winning team.
No, and those were all established guys. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking through
Yep.
the advanced stats now. Excuse me. Isringhausen, Tavares, King, and Klein all 1.5 wins above replacement
Mm-hmm.
players. And Isringhausen in particular leading the league in saves there that year. It was you mentioned Steve Klein, and he was brought up tangentially on the broadcast tonight that Romero has had the most saves by a Cardinals lefty since Klein did back in 2001, which I found to be quite interesting. But yeah, that team. Uh, even the fringe guys who didn't get in as many games like a Kiko Calero
Mm-hmm.
or Randy Flores, for example, that year, that was something else. But no, the
And
development
that's a
you
great
don't see
thing.
a lot of
I think
special.
I think Flo would be the closer on this team, and he was probably the fifth reliever on that team.
You don't get a lot of special with this. I had a thought because JC had a pretty good game. 3
Yep.
hits, if memory serves. Yeah, he's been using the backside of the infield or the backside of the field rather, going opposite field, whether it's off speed or fastballs high in the zone. He doesn't really swing a whole lot, and he's got a little bit of Carpenter to him. And a thought crushed my mind here. What if he is, Brendan Donovan's heir apparent with the utility type of bat first ability on the infield, but he's just got more years of control and got him through 2030.
I think that's the way the Cardinals look at him. They look at him as a second short, third guy. The one thing that hurts him is, at least for next year, I think that's the way they look at Weatherholt too, is a second short, third utility guy that gets at bats all over the place. Might be a good idea for Thomas and JC to grab an outfielder's glove too. The more versatile he can be, the more things he can do in the field, I think the better off he'll be, because I still don't think, despite this recent run, the Cardinals look at him as a guy that they give 500 at bats to. I think they look at him more as a guy that is a bench guy, a fill-in guy who can play when Wynn is hurt, can play when Donovan is hurt. I don't think they look at him as any better than any of the people that have started for them this year. Mason Windu, Herrera continues to hit very well. He should be the Cardinals' #1 extension candidate. I don't disagree with that at all, Mason Windu. I think he's their best hitter. I think that he athletically could play the outfield if they wanted him to. I don't know if they want him to. Bernie mentioned on the Randy Karraker show yesterday that they want to give him another chance to catch. His catching has left a lot to be desired in terms of managing a pitching staff and throwing runners out. But I guess they're going to give him one more opportunity. But the bat plays, and he is a great candidate for an extension. I disagree with that, or I agree with that 100%. Let's see. Steve W. Sad showing by Cardinals. Hey, if you left this game and went to Notre Dame and Texas A&M after the 6th, you were pretty happy, right? The problem was the last 4 innings, right? Isn't that the thing, Luke?
Right. It's the bullpen and trying to get those final 12 outs there. The Cardinals, to their credit, were tacking on insurance run there in the ninth and the 10th. So they found a way to manufacture runs. And when you do get 12 hits and you are up by 5 runs and you've got all the momentum on your side, you just got to wait to bring it on home. It's as simple as that. And to your point, Ivan Herrera, 3 for 5 and a triple short of the cycle. I wonder about the extension mindset that the Cardinals might have for Herrera in particular, because you don't really know where he ends up. There is a glut of corner and I would say positionless players here. Burleson can hit. On a really good team, he's probably hitting 6-hole,
Mhm.
maybe a team that's competing for a pennant. And Herrera, if he was a bat first catcher with some backstop acumen that the Cardinals had faith in, then that is a premium up the middle position. Right now, I don't know where you're throwing money. I don't even think they really have got a center fielder who can really
Mhm.
have that staying power in the lineup. So this is, I don't know if they should be throwing any money out for internal candidates right now.
Well, and they're going to have to get it at their price too, because the revenues just aren't there. People aren't going to the games. People aren't spending money on tickets. The TV revenue is way down. So if you give an extension, it's probably not going to be in that Bobby Witt range. I would think the Cardinals would be more than happy to go into that 14 to $16 million a year range. but I would be really surprised if they would go much above that into the 20s or the 25 range. When you look at the contract that Churio got, I don't know that the Cardinals, and that was about 150, right, over 8. I don't know if the Cardinals do that, or the Roman Anthony contract. I guess that'd be the best comp for a guy like Karraker, although Anthony is a really good outfielder. Yeah, I have no idea what the Cardinals will be willing to spend for extensions like that. Uh, let's see, Anthony C. They just won't go away. Yeah, we're comparing the Brewers to the 2011 Cardinals. How about that? I thought if I was a Brewers fan tonight, I would have been kind of ticked, by the way, at the TV broadcast when they're talking about all the teams that have a chance to win the World Series or go to the World Series, and they never even mention the Brewers. They're talking about the Cubs and the Dodgers and the Tigers and the Yankees and how they're a threat. And they never even, and even teams like the Giants, who just snuck into a spot above the Mets today, and they never even brought up the Brewers as a team that could win the World Series. I think the Brewers are really good. I think their pitching gives them a chance. And we saw tonight their bullpen did pretty good after they were down 7-2. They were fine, and they do little things to help you win games, Luke. And that's how you win in the playoffs: is pitching, defense, and little things. If the Yankees would have played good defense last year, they would have won the World Series. They have one of the worst innings defensively in the history of the World Series, and they wind up losing it. They lost that series because they didn't do the little things.
They didn't do the little things, and this Brewers team is great at finding diamonds in the rough. There was an article I think Jesse Rogers wrote for ESPN a couple weeks ago about the Brewers' philosophy that every decision they make, every string they pull, they do it with some formula, thinking 2 or 3 years in advance. And the quote says that they got that philosophy from the Cardinals. And you think back to John Mozeliak first taking over for Walt Jocketty, and the core and the young budding group that they had going, just even ascending through the minors. There was this constant pipeline of guys showing up. Some were bench guys, and some were late bloomers, but they always had some intriguing talent there on the wayside. For the Brewers in particular, they got two guys off the top of my head, maybe three, out of the Cardinals' backyard in their home state. Mizorowski, the starter tonight, who, if he can get the mental side of the game, as Pat Murphy, the manager, says, if he can get in between the ears together, he will have good command and be more of an artful pitcher and not a thrower. The command at times was an issue, not necessarily in terms of walks, but where he's locating his fastball. It's Newton's third law, right? Every action's got an equal and opposite reaction. So you're grooving that into Ivan Herrera 101. It's coming out 101 at the same time. So his last few starts in post All-Star break have not been great, but he's from Crowder College down in Neosho by Springfield, which back down there they call it Missouri, having driven past there several times. Joe Baver went there, Cardinal reliever, that 1985 pennant team, Kirkwood High School. Yeah, a little bit before my time, Randy, but do my research. Aaron Ashby from that same college, and little Caleb Durbin out of Wash U, 5'7", Division III guy now with a key double in this game. So they are doing things right that people used to be envious of the Cardinals of. They were the complement to the Yankees in the Midwest and the National League. That type of finding the diamonds in the rough. Caleb Durbin is like if Bo Hart was on steroids, just like the composure, the make up the story, and just and crushing it.
Yep, and they get Durbin, a Wash U guy, in exchange for Devin Williams, a St. Louis guy who goes to the Yankees. So those St. Louis ties run deep with the Brewers. The Brewers do things the right way, and you're exactly right. The Cardinals used to be the team that everybody watched and said, "Oh, like the Pirates and the Reds and the Brewers." They all said we want to be like them, and now the Cardinals are trying to find a way to be more, and so are the Pirates, and so are the Reds, trying to be more like the Brewers. Doobie Doobie Doo. Bill DeWitt, I think, is in a staring contest with the fans, and he really thinks the fans will blink first. Nobody is going to support this team and this product, LOL. I think that Bill DeWitt is running a business. I know in my business, because last October, they didn't dig into their own pockets to pay me when things were going bad financially for the company. I don't think that that's going to happen with the Cardinals. I think as Bill DeWitt III said last year, he said, this is a revenue machine, and we pour the revenue that we get from ticket sales and TV money into the payroll. And I don't expect any business to willingly lose money. What they generate from a revenue standpoint is what they'll plow into the payroll. And the Cardinals also know, and I think that they hope at some point fans will understand this a little bit too. They're never going to sign people to Juan Soto type contracts or Garrett Cole type contracts or Max Scherzer type contracts or Shohei Ohtani type contracts. That's just not going to happen. The Cardinals are going to have to build the way the Brewers do. With the Cardinals have a higher payroll than the Brewers do, and that's the way you're going to have to do it. And that's the key there, Luke, is being smart, being efficient with the money that you do spend, and having an effective system so that you can get more out of your young players than the Cardinals have gotten over the last decade or so.
Devil's advocate here, Randy. Don't you think the Cardinals could make more money if they had a clear, concise vision that they communicated to the fans? And I'm not calling out names, I'm not firing shots here. However, you signed Phil Maton over the offseason, and that's really it. And
Mhm.
so the messaging to the fans is unclear. It's we don't know who we are. We're just going to go with what we have.
What did they say in their
Didn't make
press
the playoff.
conference? Yeah, well, their postseason press conference in last October. That's exactly what they said they were going to do, isn't it?
Well, what is that to leave fans that they think that everyone's going to make this huge leap forward? And if they don't make a leap forward in terms of player development at the major league level, what does that say about the staff that you have in place?
Well, that's why that staff isn't going to be in place anymore. That's why Chaim Bloom has rebuilt the minor
Ooh,
league system, right?
well, I mean,
That's why Chaim
yeah, you
Bloom
got a manager go.
John Mozeliak is not going to be here anymore. Chaim Bloom has taken over as president of baseball operations. Larry Day is your minor league director. Rob Cerfolio is your assistant general manager. You've got Rob Pierpont as your minor league pitching lead. So all new people. So I don't think anything's the same here.
It's
In terms of
I
player
understand.
acquisition, what's the same?
I, I think that if you're not, I mean, this is familiar territory, but this is m- end of Matheny's tenure type of momentum where you're stalling out and you're flirting around 500, but you're not taking a step one way or the other. If
So
you got
you
all the fan base,
so you look at Chaim Bloom's history with Tampa and with Boston, where and by the way, the Red Sox this year had three of the top 12 prospects in all of baseball at the beginning of the year: Anthony, Campbell, Mayer, all acquired during the Chaim Bloom administration there. And we're thinking that this is the same as what the Cardinals have done over the last few years.
uh, it echoes it in certain parts. However, what I'm looking for is moving forward when Bloom is the guy
Mhm.
in charge. You get everyone on the same page with messaging about what the expectation is for the club. And if you say we are committed to getting the right players in the right place, committing to youth, and so the next 2 years or so, I know Bernie's talked about this on his show here on STL Sports Central, that if it does go youth movement and they're not as competitive, I think that lets the fans know that this is a time of change and transition. But nothing really transitioned
Yeah.
this past
And,
offseason.
and
If we're in year one of a rebuild, I'm kind of Tom Hanks, in Castaway. I'm trying to figure out which way I'm going.
well, I think if you and I get messaging is a big thing. Sometimes people just don't listen closely, and they need to understand. Cardinals, since last October, since they said that they were going to give their young players an opportunity, they've never said they were going to be a playoff team. They've talked all they've talked about this year, whether it's Mo or whether it's Ollie or whether it's people in the organization, including ownership. All they've talked about is runway and giving young players opportunity to show whether they can play or not. I never have, since last October, I've never heard one of the Cardinals people utter the term playoffs in terms of making them. Now, being in the race is a different thing. It would have been cool to be in the race in September and get these players the opportunity, but I would never say that from last October of 2024 to uh, September of 2025, the Cardinals, I thought, were pretty clear about uh, giving their young players an opportunity.
I understand where you're coming from. I feel like this past trade deadline would have lent itself to perhaps more bold and decisive action with the terms or in terms of the makeup of this roster. You have some guys with value on the trade market. We don't have to name them one by one. However, a Sonny Gray, a Wilson Contreras, a Brendan Donovan could accelerate and show fans, the type of deep dive that Heim Bloom is going to make in
I'm
terms of
pretty
player
sure,
development and really
Luke,
committing.
yeah, that last year during the offseason, they went to both Contreras and Gray and said, "Hey, do you want to be here or do you want to be traded?" And both said, both have full no trade clauses, and both said, we want to stay here. We want to be in St. Louis." You could have traded your only All Star. I don't know though how you get better by getting rid of good players.
That is the focus of a rebuild. We've seen, I mean, the Brewers have been, they've been through a rebuild. The Astros back before they went on their long run, the Cubs before they won the World Series, and there are some dark days involved in those.
Yeah, and you know what? So let's talk about the Cubs and the Astros. So the Cubs, they lost 100 games 4 years in a row, and they got Bryant out of it, and they got Javi Baez out of it, and they got Schwarber out of it. They went and signed Jason Hayward. They went and signed Dexter Fowler. They traded for Anthony Rizzo. They traded for Addison Russell. They went and gave big money to Lackey. They gave big money to Lester. They traded the top prospect in baseball, in Gleyber Torres, for Aroldis Chapman. I don't think that their winning was a product of finishing in last place for 4 years in a row. I would agree. I would argue that the same thing happened with the Astros in 2017. George Springer and Jose Altuve were leftovers from the Ed Wade administration there. They went and traded for Brian McCann as their catcher. They gave big money to Yuli Gurriel. They did get Correa with a draft pick. They got Bregman with a draft pick. They traded for a big money guy in Justin Verlander. They wasted the number 1 overall picks with Appel and Brady Aiken. They traded for or signed Reddick to play the outfield. That was a team that was that was not a team that was built because of finishing in last place. They got 2 really good players out of finishing in last place, but most of it was drafted and developed from the previous administration or spending a bunch of money and making good moves. And now, by the way, it's kind of a moot point that I'm bringing up because you can't have back-to-back top 10 picks anymore, which is what the Cubs and the Astros did because of the CBA. You can't tank and work that way anymore. So the
landscape
Cardinals
has changed.
the worst record in baseball this year, and they wouldn't have had a top 10 pick.
Yeah. The landscape has changed, and the CBAs will continue to make this game more interesting, throw some wrinkles in there. I look back to that Montgomery trade a couple of years ago, and I think that that's the type of move that really made sense. And a different scenario for
So
sure, but
you get
getting a
this is
piece like
for Roby
Sajay.
and for Sajay, right? Roby,
Mhm.
Sajay, and John King, right?
Yeah, that's the type of those are the foundational moves, and there are, smaller ones as well to get those pieces that help you win games, help push you ahead in a pennant race or a playoff race. And I think back to the Cubs in 2016 in particular, like Kyle Hendricks was a prospect in a Ryan Dempster trade. Dexter Fowler coming the way of Luis Valbuena, who was a utility guy who was able to hit. So it's pieces like that that factor in that make a championship club and really have this cohesive thing going. But
Yeah, and
I understand your point, and I concede.
the Cardinals just that they have not done a good job of developing pitching, obviously, which the Cubs didn't do either. But the Cubs are in the 3rd biggest market in America, and the Cardinals have not developed a superstar in a long time either. And that's the biggest thing is they need somebody that is a fulcrum of the team. They need somebody that fans will want to go out and pay money to see. And even when Mason Wynn is healthy, I don't think they have that guy right now. They thought that guy was going to be Jordan Walker. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Maybe JJ Weatherholt will be that guy. We don't know. We thought Jordan Walker was going to be great, and he put up really good numbers in the minors. Hopefully, Weatherholt will be that guy, but the Cardinals need to find a guy like that. You know what we have found, Luke, is we found legalized gambling in Missouri, and it all gets underway on December 1st. In Missouri, you need to get ready because the wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. New Missouri customers get $300 in bonus bets when the DraftKings launches on December 1st in Missouri. Download now and place a $5 bet for when DraftKings goes live. And DraftKings Sportsbook will bring everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when DraftKings does go officially live in Missouri, you're going to be betting with the best sportsbook app that's trusted by millions, safe, secure, and has fast money withdrawals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use that promo code right there, STL Sports, to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live December 1st. That's code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. How about that? DraftKings is going to be rocking and rolling in Missouri. Let's get to a few more of your chats, and we appreciate them. Let's see. Joseph Polaster made me sick watching Fetty celebrating. Yeah, I get that. I think that's fair enough. Let's see. Mason Windu, interested to see how Michaelis does tomorrow. He's been pretty good lately. Seems to be using the changeup more often and more effectively. Might surprise a few fans down the stretch. And you might have Milwaukee partying a little bit. But Luke, here's the thing about Miles. He's just not good on the road, is he? He's fine at home, but man, he's a different pitcher on the road.
Right. In the last start that I saw him, he was at Busch Stadium. Let's pull it up actually while we're here, because it's over 6, I'm pretty sure. I think that this is
Yeah.
maybe part of a farewell tour where, you go your separate ways. You have him, pitch 5 solid innings if he can, and try to get out of this puppy. Maybe get a good
Yeah. Here's
deal over the off
it's
season. Let's take a look.
Yeah,
Got,
he's
road
at
games.
home 4-4, 3.40 away, 3-6. There you have it, 6.54. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and susceptible to the long ball as well on the road. I think back to that start in Tampa where it just kind of spiraled after a couple of innings there in that Mickey Mouse minor league ballpark that they got down there. Unfortunate
Yeah,
because of the hurricane, but yeah, it's hopefully Cardinals fans can celebrate the good times, the 18 win season, the clubhouse, mojo and the sage and the good memories he brought, and hopefully end solid and golf clap and just remember him fondly.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think we'll
No?
remember I think we'll remember the last couple of years post injury. We'll probably remember the post injury Miles. Unfortunately, King's Echo, who's angry because his Razorbacks blew it tonight, but he says, "I hate everyone on this team." So. And oh, you know what? I think he hates his Razorbacks. I think that's what he's complaining about. And he hates Lane Kiffin. Says it was a terrible day. I get it, King's Echo. We have some of those. So how about MIZ though today? Woo, they were good.
ZOU.
And if you didn't see Lenora Sellers, by the way, Vanderbilt just hammered South Carolina. Lenora Sellers with a head injury in that game. So we don't know if he'll be available for South Carolina at Mizzou next week or not.
Yeah, watching the Kansas game, I thought that going against Jalen Daniels and how he scrambles out of the pocket, I think that would prepare you for a Lenora Sellers. But man, Diego Pavia and Clark Lee and those
Yeah.
Vandy Commodores,
3
what
and
are they
0.
building there?
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
beating Bama last year. Incredible.
Yeah, pretty amazing. All right, we got the question, and I asked this last year. You talk about messaging, and I asked this question last year because Bill DeWitt Jr. did say at the press conference when the Cardinals fired Mike Matheny, he said 500 isn't acceptable for this franchise or this city. And I asked him what changed, and he said, well, it's still unacceptable, but then they've kind of accepted it. And I think what's happened, Luke, is that the sport has changed. I think even since the Cardinals fired Mike Matheny, I think things have changed at such a rapid pace, and the Cardinals have failed to keep up. And that's why they've made all these changes, because they watched the rest of baseball zoom by them, and they had no idea what was happening around them. That's one of the issues that you have when you don't bring in anybody at all from the outside to kind of give you some self-scouting. Even the Dodgers, the best organization in baseball, bring in people from the outside on a regular basis, other major league teams, and they kind of utilize the intelligence that those people bring, the institutional intelligence. And all of the good organizations do it. The Yankees do. If you look at the Dodgers list of 6 or 7, however many it is, assistant general managers, they've got a bunch of guys that have been with other organizations and really help out. And I think that's one of the advantages the Cardinals have in moving forward with the group of people they have. Bloom having been with Tampa, Day and Cerfolio having been with Cleveland, where they do a really good job of developing young players. Pierpont from Seattle, where they've done a really good job of developing young pitchers. Their director of performance from the Dodgers, where they have developed a lot of good young players. Not only did they get people to change their system from the outside, but all of them have a specific common denominator, and that is that they come from franchises where historically, in recent history, those franchises have done a good job of developing good young talent.
Right, and developing good young talent used to be the bread and butter of the Cardinal system, and they led the way. And it's kind of like the feeling of waking up late for work, right? Like it's already 9:35, and people have just kind of scooted by you. We mentioned the Cubs and their postseason run, and even they started to fall by the wayside there and had a couple of mediocre years themselves. And I think the Cardinals did produce those execs for a while that were sought after. Mike
Mhm.
Elias in Baltimore did his own kind of rebuild back when it was encouraged to tank and got Matt
Mhm.
Holliday's kid out of it. So there are anecdotes that don't really apply anymore. And so getting Heim Bloom is a smart move. I think this comment here that I got on the screen from M. Gill
Mhm.
Design saying the Cardinals hired 3 first-time managers in a row. This is a different symptom of the problem entirely. I would say since you hired Tony La Russa back in '96, it has all come from that tree. And I know that the manager might not be as instrumental a position as it was back in the '80s or '90s. However, the last 30 years, it's all kind of come from that funnel. And it makes you wonder what approach, who they will look for in terms of potential coaching candidates from the ground up, from rookie ball to Major League Baseball, and the names that will be tossed around. And that's
Yeah,
all. It was
and
a
I
thought.
think that'll be interesting, and I don't disagree with the idea of experienced managers, bringing something that inexperienced major league managers don't. Not that Ollie didn't manage at the minor league level, or Schilt didn't manage at the minor league level, or Mike Matheny didn't manage at the little league level. But you look at Bochy, a couple of years, and Dave Roberts is on his first managerial job, and they won the World Series last year. But before that, Bochy was with the Padres, was with the Giants, obviously won the 3 World Series there, was with the Rangers. Dusty winning with the Houston Astros a couple of back in 2022. He had been around the block. Before that, the World Series Atlanta, Brian Snitker had spent 40 years in the Braves organization, a veteran guy. Before that, I don't even count 2020 because it was the COVID year. But then you have Davey Martinez, first time manager. But then before that, AJ Hinch had managed in Arizona before he got to Houston, Boston. It was Cora, and then you had a long string. It was Hinch before that with Houston. You had the Cubs with Joe Madden. You had the Royals with Ned Yost, who had managed Milwaukee before that, and then it was people like the Giants with Bochy, the Red Sox with Farrell, the Giants with Bochy, the Cardinals with La Russa. I think there is something to be said for having an experienced manager, if indeed you want that manager to manage. And I really haven't taken a look at it, Lucas, to who would be out there that is worthy of that second job. I don't think it has to be a guy that's won before. I mean, AJ Hinch hadn't won before. Ned Yost hadn't really won before. I think you just try to find a sharp guy that kind of fits what you're trying to do. But I would not be averse if the Cardinals make a change, and I'm not so sure they're going to do that. I would not be averse to bringing in an experienced guy rather than a Molina or a Pujols.
I don't know if you want to have this conversation or not. However, like there are experienced managerial candidates out there, and will be in years to come as well. But Ollie's a loyal guy and has stuck through some very frustrating times here.
Yeah, Joseph Polaster, make a trade with Tampa Bay for their manager. I
I
would
was going
think,
to say that.
yeah, Kevin Cash though, as they get a new owner and they get ready to move into a new stadium, and Kevin Cash is a really good manager, he might want to stay in that situation. Now, it's obviously difficult to win in the AL East, but if you have familiarity, and I would think that they'll keep their general manager around. They've done a really good job down there over the years of building a system. And obviously, Kevin Cash, if they go to him and say, "Hey, we want to trade you," maybe Heim would want him. Uh, there's always that chance, I guess. But they did. They gave Madden an opt out, and he opted out of his contract. I don't know if Cash has one of those. I'm 50-50 on whether or not they're going to bring Ollie back. I don't know. I have no idea what Heim Bloom's plans are there. M. Gill Design, I would give Skip Schumacher a chance, unless you could steal Francona from the Reds. At least Skip is a little seasoned now and actually played and knows what it feels like to win. And he did win a Manager of the Year with the Marlins a few years ago. Although Bruce Bochy is 70, every indication is, even with this great run that they've had recently, that he's going to retire. And I think, Luke, that Skip is in line to take over the Rangers job, where they've got all that good young talent and they've won recently. That probably is a better job than the Cardinal job right now.
It is, and they're not shy about making free agent signings there when they went all in 2023. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that outfield, they were kind of getting pieces. They had Jankowski out there and all that, but Adolis Garcia, of course, acquired through different means.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, Skip with that assistant to the general manager job, or special assistant, whatever it's called, heir apparent to Bruce Bochy. It's a good, consistent, clean situation there. The Cardinals, you don't really know what you get. It's still an incredible brand in baseball. You will have no problem luring a Davey Martinez, or I don't know who else would be out there for the taking. Kevin Cash, for example, would be quite an interesting prospect if it came to that. However, I'm just interested to see the cadence of this organization when it comes time to make those decisions. You have a manager going into a contract year. It's kind of like college football, right? Or basketball, even when a guy's going into his contract year as a coach, or a gal going into a contract year, it, it it changes the whole psyche around recruiting, free agency, NIL. You're on uncertain ground. You're on uneven footing. So I mean, that is a whole different conversation that I'm not. I don't have to make those multi-million dollar decisions, but the eyes of the baseball world will be watching.
By the way, one guy that Chaim Bloom has a great deal of familiarity with, and he's been in an untenable situation and has not won, but he does have a history with Bloom, and he's been a major league manager and might be one of those guys that we talk about for a second chance, and that's Derek Shelton, the former manager of the Pirates, and he wants to get back into it. He's a charismatic guy. I don't know that one's going to sell very well. King's Echo says, "Would you really bring Ollie back?" I don't think that this team next year is going to be prepared to win. And it depends on what direction you want to go. Because one thing Ali Marmol has done is uh, many players, not all, but many players have improved under his watch. And they've also been able to do something that is unprecedented in recent baseball history, and that's keep all of their pitchers healthy. And he does get some credit for that. He's utilized the data for that. And really, this team, are we looking at 4 games under 500 now? The Cardinals, 5 games under 500 at 72 and 77. If you would have told me, and they were at 72 and 72, if you would have told me, Luke, on the first day of spring training, that the Cardinals would, after 144 games, be 72 and 72, I would have taken that in a blink. So I think that, especially with the injuries and with the departure of the relief pitchers, I don't think that this season, the 72 and 77 season, is all at the feet of Ollie Marmol.
The Cardinals are exactly where they are supposed to be. And in fact, advanced numbers, I mean, the run differential's at negative 53 for the season. So their expected record would be several more games under 500, like a cool 69 and 80 record. So credit where credit is due. They are playing a few games better than their run differential would indicate. And yeah, thanks to the Mets and to middling teams trying to get that last wild card spot, they still have a fringe chance of getting there. However, yeah, it's an untenable situation, sure, for Ali Marmol.
And I don't, and Samuel Howe, really 80 wins was a dream for you. That wasn't a dream; it was reality. I'm not dealing in dreaming here. I'm dealing in what the team was capable of at the beginning of spring training and what they've done. I figured that they would be somewhere between the 71 wins of a couple of, and I know this is a wide delta, as Mo would say, somewhere between the 71 of 2 years ago and the 83 of last year, and that's exactly where they're going to wind up. This team was not going to be a 92 or a 93 win team. There was absolutely no way. You could have had Whitey Herzog managing this team, and they would not have been a 92 or a 93 win team. So I was dealing in reality more than I was dealing with a dream. And then the suggestion that they got lucky by keeping their pitching healthy, I think, is a little bit unfair because the Cardinals talked in spring training about the data that they had mined and how they could keep their pitchers healthy. And then it happened. And other teams are coming to the Cardinals now and asking them how they did keep their pitchers healthy. Not a single pitcher has been placed on the IL with an arm injury, which is, to me, Luke, remarkable. I don't remember ever seeing that. And I've been watching for a long time, and I don't ever remember seeing a team never put a pitcher on the IL or even before that, the DL with an arm injury. They haven't done it all year long. I think when you say you're going to try to do that and then you do it, I don't think that's luck.
No, it's not. And you even go back to the game tonight and how Sonny Gray was out dueling the Miz, Jacob Mizorowski, getting more swings and misses. And if you'd asked me before the game, who's going to be more challenging to hitters, the guy who throws 101 and is sitting around 99 regularly, or the guy who's averaging 92, I would have said in a heartbeat probably Miz. However, it's just really good complementary breaking stuff. That sweeper getting multiple strikeouts from Sonny Gray, that's just one, small, it's the microcosm of what the Cardinals have done really well. Now, uh, guys like Palante, McGreevy, they are not, firing their elbows off there throwing high heat. However, with guys who pitch to contact, you see a little bit more durability, and hopefully when they're getting things pounded right into the ground, some length. So yeah, there's some good and some bad to that. However, I will take a healthy pitching staff from game 1 to game 162 over some of the medicine ball that other teams play while having other facets of their game unresolved.
Yeah, let's hit on a couple of other things, Luke, here. First of all, Jeremy Hodge, I think that, again, I get the emotion associated with losing a game like the Cardinals lost tonight when they were up 7-2, up 7-4 in the ninth. They allow three in the ninth. They lose 9-8. I understand the emotion associated with that. But to say that John Jay needs to go when you look at the defensive improvement of this outfield, when you look at the fact that this team, despite the fact that they aren't at 500, they have the best defense metrically in all of baseball. Outs above average, they are number one. When you look at Mason Wynn being the best defensive shortstop, and again, metrically, the best defensive player in baseball, when you look at the way that Wilson Contreras has adjusted to first, when you look at the way that Donovan has played second, even Victor Scott in center field, and Burleson has improved in left. I think that it would be unfair to let John Jay go. Again, you look at the pitchers, and Luke, help me here. Among the pitchers, who among this group did you expect to be better than they have been for the full 6 months of this season? Um, uh, Libertor improved. Obviously, Palante wore down because he's never pitched close to this many innings or starts before. Michaelis is what he is. Sonny Gray is what he is. I'm trying to think. Helsley he wasn't as good. They were hitting the fastball. Maybe Helsley would be the guy. I'm not. I don't think Dusty Blake is Dave Duncan, but I don't think he's done a horrible job either.
Dave Duncan was a miracle worker, and even for a time, Derek Lilliquist after that. I would to your point, the whole 6 months of the season, w- when I was working back at the mothership, Old Valley Sportsman West, and Andre Palante broke through, he was doing more relief work, middle of games, some more extended outings, and so at the time, his stuff played really well in short stints. And now we're getting to the point where he's thrown the most innings in his career. Same thing for Matthew Liberatore. So there has been some trail off. Early in the season, there were times when Andre Palante looked like a 3 and sometimes a fringe 2, the way he was able to get quick outs and get out of the innings. And the same thing for Liberatore. Like, the break on that curveball is excellent, and if he pairs that with a good fastball command, you really could be cooking with gas with a mid rotation starter at some point. And it's not going to be this year.
Mhm.
The Cardinals will learn by winning and having success consistently with those types of players. And so I'm encouraged to see Liberatore take the next step. I'm encouraged to see Andre Palante hopefully bounce back if he's even a factor in that 1 through 5 in the rotation next year. If they do, if they give Heim Bloom carte blanche, or if they go out and they make a trade, or they sign some starters and maybe bump Palante into a longer relief role or something like that, maybe they can find a better solution. However, no, I think everyone pitched according to expectations. Gray is about to turn 36 and going into a contract year. That's, there is to be some fall off expected there too.
Mhm. And I would think that next year, based upon what we've heard about payroll, you're probably looking, and I know Katie Wu has suggested, she's said that she doesn't think that Sonny Gray is going to be here, and the Giants reportedly will have interest. The Braves reportedly would have interest in Sonny Gray, so maybe you could move him and half of that $35 million salary. So you're looking, if he's not here, at McGreevy, Palante, Liberatore, perhaps Kyle Leahy as a starter, and then until the cavalry of Quinn Matthews and Liam Doyle arrives, I think you're probably uh, getting some lower level major league free agents, or maybe a few of those 6-year minor league free agents, just because you need to have sixth and seventh starter. You can't plan on this happening again, where you're going to have a year without injuries to your rotation.
It comes down to quality depth, and if you're going to be a serious contender, or at least, you know, what's the right? What am I thinking here? We talked about messaging earlier, but if you want to improve your club, how about that? Quality depth is going to be a good step forward. And you mentioned Liam Doyle, pride of the University of Tennessee, and who they got running that program, Tony Vitello,
Hmm.
DeSmet, a St. Louis guy through and through. They are something else.
Yeah, they're really good. It's Michaelis against our old buddy Jose Quintana tomorrow, 1:10 with that game, and that one will be back on FanDuel Sports. And of course, you can join us beforehand with Card Central pregame, and then afterward again a Card Central postgame. Luke, it's been great working with you. This has been a lot of fun, and unfortunately, we do it after a devastating loss for the Cardinals, but people love to react to games like this, and we're glad that everybody checked in and chatted as much as they did. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Randy, I've only been wanting to do this for 11 years in my career. So
Oh,
thanks for rising to the occasion. Absolutely no pressure. Had a blast.
oh, we'll have to do it again, and hopefully Sarah Daly. Sarah was supposed to be on with us tonight under the weather.
Yeah.
Hopefully she's feeling better. But yeah, I had a great time doing it, and anytime.
Love you, Sarah. All right, guys. This has been STL Sports Central, Card Central Postgame.
Brought to you by DraftKings, where the crown is yours.